so many of my dad's friends here. It's just gratifying to see you. Let me say a special thanks to those of you who took the time to send cards and notes to me and to the family. Those were very kind thoughts that you wrote. I have had little chance to thank you personally for those thoughts, but please understand that they were very comforting and very thoughtful. Some of them even true, actually, but thank you very much. They were really wonderful. The idea for tonight was really my dad's. Dad was never one who thought he wanted to have a funeral or any sort of a formal ceremony, and had always made that very clear. In the last few weeks, he knew that we were thinking about having something to remember him. And I could tell he was quite interested, but was reluctant to put his 2 cents in. So I finally said, Dad, what is it you'd like to do? What would you like to have? How would you like to be remembered? He said, well, truthfully, Craig, he said, I'd like my friends to get together, have a drink or two, and tell Dutch Higgs stories. So that's what we're doing tonight. Now, frankly, I got to tell you, that sounded like a wonderful idea at first blush, but we thought about some of Dad's friends after a drink or two telling Dutch Higgs stories. We worried a little bit, but nonetheless, here we are, and please feel free to tell your favorite story as we gather about tonight. We do have what might pass for some kind of a program tonight, hopefully be reasonably brief. After my brief remarks, Justice Haller is going to say a few words, and Ferd Fletcher will say words. Notice I didn't say few. Then we have a videotape that John Morris, standing here before me, put together, which is really very wonderful. And now John is a wonderful appellate attorney, but he's also a superb video meister. And so you'll see about a 14-minute video that John put together, and if you have hankies at the ready, that's a good idea. And afterward, the idea is, again, just to stand about or sit as you please and tell Dutch Higgs stories, your favorite ones. You know, there's the screwdriver story, there's the John Haller, not John Haller story, and actually we could list them and point to them by number and probably get a few laughs. But that's just the idea tonight, to enjoy our company and to talk about Dutch. I even know the real story about how he got that nickname, which I can pass on to somebody who might not know it. But inasmuch as that's the idea, let me assert a personal privilege and tell one Dutch Higgs story that I particularly like. He liked telling stories on other people, of course, but he particularly liked telling stories on himself. And Dad, as you know, was a regent of the University of California for 16 years, starting in 1966. Very proud, very happy to have done that. There were some very turbulent times, of course. Here in San Diego, Angela Davis, Herbert Marcuse, lots of problems going on, the free speech movement starting in Berkeley. And Dad got letters. Dad got lots of letters. In fact, not only did he get letters, but Dad got calls. Dad, for all the time that he was on the board, still had his home phone number listed. People would call him in the middle of the night, he'd pick up the phone and talk to them. Student, a professor, taxpayer, didn't matter, Dad would talk to them. And he got a lot of letters. And some of them were amusing, some of them were perhaps not too complimentary, but he responded to all of them. One day he got a little bit, I guess maybe a little bit tired of some of these letters he got, and he picked up a stack and walked into Pitts Mack's office. And Bill, maybe you remember this. And he said, Pitts, what am I supposed to think? I got all these letters. Here's one that starts out, you commie sympathizer. And here's the very next one, you fascist pig. And look at this one, you stupid bastard. And Pitts looks back and says, you know, Dutch, I think they're getting closer. That's the idea. That was my dad. That's the kind of thing he wanted to have told tonight. So thank you for your indulgence. And Judy, would you come up?
It is so good to see everyone, and I haven't seen some of you since the time I now need glasses, and I need more than dinosaur glasses now with my new job. Like everyone here, I had the privilege of knowing Dutch Higgs, and tonight I have the privilege of honoring him publicly. In March of 1979, I reported for work at Higgs Fletcher and Mack, and in that first day, I saw Dutch and said something profound like, "Good morning, Mr. Higgs." And his response was such that I knew immediately this was a very special person. First, he acknowledged me by my name, even though I was a new fledgling attorney. And secondly, he made it very clear it wasn't Mr. Higgs, it was Dutch. In the next 10 years, I knew that my initial impressions of Dutch were accurate. And I learned that above all, Dutch Higgs was a kind, gentle, fair-minded, decent individual who people trusted implicitly. And because of those traits, Dutch was an absolute master at building consensus and solving the most difficult of problems. Craig mentioned the University of California days. You also might want to ask the attorneys in the Photomat case what he thought and what they thought about Dutch's abilities to settle cases. Somehow Dutch always saw the best in people. And in thinking back, I honestly could not think of one mean-spirited thing I had ever heard that man say. He always treated people with respect, and he had an incredible ability to make people feel good about themselves. More than once, he would disarm his advocates, some of them who came loaded for bear, because Dutch had a wonderful sense of humor. He had good sense, good common sense, and a reasoned approach. And on top of it all, Dutch never, ever took himself too seriously, nor did he ever use his considerable influence in this community to take advantage of someone else. It wasn't until I was appointed to the bench in 1989 and I had the chance to watch the interrelationship between jurors and attorneys, and the bench and attorneys, that I suddenly understood why Dutch had been such an effective trial attorney and why he commanded such respect with the members of our bench. Though by the time I was appointed to the bench, Dutch was spending his energies outside the courtroom. I had a couple of recent conversations thinking I'd go to some of the judges on our bench who actually had Dutch in trial, and they confirmed what I had expected to find out about Dutch Higgs, the trial attorney. Why was he so effective? It was simple. He was the ultimate professional. He was bright, he was reasonable, and he was honorable. And he also had an infectious charm that made it very easy to like Dutch Higgs. In a word, Dutch Higgs was somebody you could trust. I talked to Bill Yale, and he shared a story that I think sums up Dutch in one little vignette. Bill indicated that when he was a very young attorney, he and another young attorney were in front of a judge whose name he would not mention. And they were not exactly thrilled with the way things were going, so the two of them decided the best way to resolve things for their client and their two adversary clients was to go to binding arbitration. So they simply informed the judge that the matter had been, quote, resolved. They decided that in picking this arbitrator, they would sit down and on separate pieces of paper they would write down names until they came up with a common name. Well, you probably guessed it took about 2 seconds and one name. They both thought of Dutch first. In addition to all of Dutch's many accomplishments as an attorney and a member of our legal community, I marveled most, quite frankly, and I hope I get through this without crying, about the relationship between, sorry Craig, you and your dad. It's really not very often that you see a father and son who like each other a lot. And for all of us who were, darn it, for all of us who were around you two, that was such an obvious aspect of your personalities. You truly enjoyed each other, and you were each other's best cheerleaders. Craig, I want to thank you, members of your family, and the firm for asking me to speak today. There was only one Dutch Higgs, but he influenced all of us who worked with him, all of us who had the chance to be around him. And he made us better people and better attorneys. And for that we say, thanks, Dutch.